Om Shanti. Today we'll continue reading the chapter on the battle of good and evil. The opposition, meanwhile, stepped up their activities. They hired gangs to go out and follow people who visited the satsang. When they thought they could get away with it, they cornered these people and threatened them with death if they were caught going to Brahma Baba in the future. When Brahma Baba heard about this technique, when Brahma Baba heard about this tactic, he shook his head gently. He was not angered, nor did he feel they were really malicious. These people do not know the Supreme Father. That is why they are full of animosity and opposition. They are suspicious that I am doing all of this by myself. They have no idea that I am also bound by a godly bond. The Supreme Soul has no body of his own, so he uses this one to show the pure light. But those people do not see the soul, they see only this body. How can you blame them? It is not their fault. The fault lay with the scriptures. Brahma Baba explained to us. Those books appear to support lustful action. It is written, for example, that Brahma was enticed by Saraswati, that when, Shankar saved Mohini, he became infatuated, that Sri Krishna stole the clothing of the gopis. By listening to such false stories, which are only to be understood symbolically, they have naturally come to the conclusion that lust must have existed since time immemorial. And yet, in the supreme of all scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, it is explicitly stated, lust is the greatest enemy. This profound statement has been utterly forgotten, ignored by the Pandits and scholars alike. Yet the Gurus know it. That is why they run off into the jungles, away from the allure of woman. The Christians know it, for they say lust is the original sin. And so Catholic priests are also celibate. The Buddhists know it, and so their monks strive constantly for purity. The Jews also demand sexual restraint from their people, and Orthodox married couples live according to strict rules which limit lustful relations. So it would seem that the world is well aware of the meaning and value of purity. To his supporters who wanted to speak out against the persecutions of the anti-Om Mandali party, Baba said, "Those who speak ill of us are our best friends." And in fact, though it may not yet have been apparent, Baba's children were being tested and strengthened by this challenge, after which they would never again be delicate or fearful. Only those who had been through the fire could hope to stand firm when it was time to deliver God's message to the world at large. And it was a hot fire indeed. The pressure from the anti-Om Mandali party soon increased again. Not only were the girls beaten, but now they were being forced to eat pig's meat. The men of the girls' own families forced the impure flesh down their throats. Those families which are less aggressive would call in a magician to do the dirty work. One magician specialized in removing the, in quotes, magic spell from a woman by forcing her to lie with her arms and legs spread out beneath her own bed. He would pin her hands under the legs of the bed, and then he would sit on top of the bed and laughed at her. Other magicians copied this method, adding to it the infliction of other tortures as well. These magicians would keep the woman spread-eagled and bound in this manner for days on end, continually demanding that they renounce the path of purity. Sometimes relatives would come in and beat the girl's fingers with heavy wooden utensils which are used in the kitchen for crushing nuts and seeds in such a way that their fingers were senselessly crushed. Yet the girls who were abused in this way still kept their faith with God. They could be heard singing through their tears. Over the whole world he rules. The universe is his. The Supreme Soul has come to make us pure. While everyone was sleeping in the dark night of the soul, while everyone was weeping in the painful web of vice, while the passion of Satan had made us drunk with pride, then the King of Kings descended. In Baba's forehead he arrived. In the light of the world has come to light the lamp of knowledge. You may wonder why anyone should have to suffer so much just because of the wish to observe celibacy, especially since this virtue is glorified in religious celebrations around the world. There is equally praise for the Virgin Mary as there is for the purity of saints and sages. Plato extolled the virtues of celibacy. Adam and Eve lived in perfect innocent purity in the Garden of Eden, and it was when they ate the apple of physical desire that they were forced to flee from paradise. Likewise, all the gods and goddesses of Hindu tradition are said to have changed from beautiful to ugly by sitting on the pyre of lust. This way, sovereignty over their senses was lost in a period universally recognized as the fall of man. In India, virgin girls were virtually worshipped, but once they marry, they are treated as servants and forced to put veils over their faces, a clear indication that they have lost their treasured purity. The virgin deities Jagadamba and Saraswati are held in the highest esteem. People come to wash their feet in adoration of their achievement of purity. And yet, when it came to putting all this into practice, when girls told their families that they too were now becoming goddesses by practicing purity of mind, speech, and action, they were met with fear and hatred. And their own relatives began beating their hands with axe handles and tying them up with heavy chains. Oh man, in the intoxication of your physical organs and your senses, you act so brutally that you lose all power to distinguish right from wrong, truth from evil. Remember that one day your body will return to dust and they will eat the fruit of your impure acts. So, why inflict such pain on these souls of the weaker sex? Oh man, intoxicated with your wealth, you live a life of sensuality and you look at the poor with hatred. Indeed, you suck their blood. But just remember, a day will come when everything you own will fall into the dust. Your house, your diamonds, your gold, your life, all will mix into the dust. How many days are left to you? Oh man, realize yourself before it is too late. And so the woman sang, holding a mirror up to those who feared to see how degraded they had become. Something powerful and extraordinary was going on, but it was incomprehensible to most of synth society. To avoid seeing the reality of events, many people rationalized their own behavior until wrong seemed right. They told each other that those who listened to Brahma Baba and became celibate were mad. But who were really the madmen? Those who had found peace and happiness by taking to the path of purity and remembrance of God? Or those who are capable of beating their own wives and daughters and even their own mothers? The irony of the situation was not lost neither on Brahma Baba nor his children. Those in the darkness of ignorance thought the enlightened ones were crazy, while those who had attained enlightenment felt much the same about the ones in darkness. One sister, who was then a teenager, living with her family, told how she was locked in a room each morning to prevent her from going to Baba's satsang. When her family saw her determination to forego marriage was a firm one, they began to lock her up for longer periods and to starve her. When she still held out for celibacy, they started beating her with a strap. It was a true test for such a young girl who was accustomed to giving her family complete respect. She did not wish to disobey them even now, but the commands of God were of even greater sanctity. I will go without eating, she told them, and you may beat me every day if you wish, but I cannot live without the knowledge. So please permit me to go to the satsang. When they saw that their tactics were of no use, her family called in a magician. He recited, he recited incantations over her and forced her to drink enchanted water. But she smiled at him very gently. How can your human magic oppose God's magic? The magician understood that he was defeated, that her love was truly attached to the highest Father, and at last he stopped trying to apply his magic. Her, the parents lit up a little, and she tried again to lead a normal life at home. But now her relatives and friends watched her with a different kind of look in their eyes, as if she belonged to another species. In the evenings, she sat quietly in a corner, enjoying peaceful samadhi, a state of transcendence. But this somehow triggered anger in the others. They thought of ways to create difficulties for her each time she sat to meditate, either by giving her tasks to perform or by harassing her and poking fun at her spiritual efforts. And when she sat by herself to read Shiv Baba's Murli, spiritual discourse, their outrage was boundless. It was as if they felt her study of the Murli was a personal attack on them. And so the beatings began again. What kind of people are these? She wondered. What kind of world is this? What kind of age? She began to sing. Oh Maya, your colorful mirage, why do you make people dance? You get them drunk on the pleasures of the senses, till the intellect is completely spent. Oh, why do you fill them with anger and lust? Oh, Maya, you trap the best of people. You make them forget their own form. You trap them in their costumes and make them forget where they come from. You grind them in the grinding wheel of sorrow. In the Srimad Bhagavat, a popular Indian scriptural work, there are many stories about Prince Krishna, who is there referred to as the Lord. Krishna is always depicted as playing the flute. He plays it so beautifully that the gopis, the milkmaids, go mad with love and run away from their homes to be with the Lord. The sister later recalled, at that time, I was remembering those stories of Krishna. I used to read them in my childhood. When the gopis fell in love with the Murli, the flute of the Lord, their families tried to prevent them from running away to be with the flute player. Often I used to wonder how a gopi could have heard the beautiful flute of the Lord and her husband not have heard it. Or was it that they closed their ears, that they did not like hearing that magic flute? I suddenly realized the secret contained in that ancient story. It referred to none other than this very experience I was going through. The flute of God was not a musical instrument, but rather the flute of knowledge. On hearing it, I was filled with joy, and yet these relatives prevented me from going off to listen to more. They themselves could not hear the otherworldly music. I saw myself as a gopi of knowledge. The hidden meaning of the entire scripture was suddenly revealed to my eyes. It was the secret memorial of Shiv Baba's descent and our falling in love with the ocean of truth and purity. Such understanding enabled me to tolerate all the hardship and abuse which were inflicted on me and to still keep on smiling. Om Shanti. We'll continue with the chapter the next day.